Hello, St. Anthony first graders and second graders. This is Mr. Scott with this week's art lesson. And today, the day that I'm recording this, is Friday, October 9th. And the materials, the paper and the other things that you needed for this lesson were sent home on Tuesday of this week. So you'll watch the video today and then you'll be completing and turning this project in on Tuesday, October 13th. This is actually going to be the first project that goes on our second quarter or our second grading period. Your teachers gave you something that looked like this on Tuesday, a group of papers, and on the back of that group of paper there is a handout stapled to it. So the first thing we're going to want to do to get ready for this lesson is to carefully take that staple out. Try not to tear your papers or damage your papers when you're taking it out. You may need to have mom or dad help you do that, or somebody else, a brother or sister or somebody to help you take it out. But when you get it out, you're going to have several different pieces of paper. The first paper is a small green piece, then a small yellow piece, a small orange piece, a red piece, a brown piece, a very long green skinny piece, and a piece of dark blue paper. Then again, the last thing on the back is a handout, and this handout kind of gives you a little bit about what this project is going to be about. So we have been talking about overlapping, and we have overlapped pumpkins. We did it by making a collage, and if you remember, a collage is by cutting and gluing, and you made either 2 or 3 pumpkins and we layered them and overlapped them on our paper and glued them down. That was a collage, and this assignment is going to be a collage as well. And at the top of this handout it says tree collage with overlapping and organic shapes. Well, you guys know what it means to overlap. That just means that one thing goes in front of another, just like our pumpkins. One pumpkin was in back, one pumpkin was in front, and they were overlapping. One covered part of another one. So if you look at our handout, those trees are overlapping each other. There are some trees in the back, there are some trees in the middle, and there are some trees in the front. So when we do this next collage, our second collage for this year, we're going to think about overlapping these trees. And the other word in that title says organic shapes. And organic shapes, the word organic you may not have heard before. Organic shapes, or the word organic, means natural or nature. So organic shapes are the kinds of shapes that we would find in nature. If we go outside and we look at a tree or a plant or a mountain, we don't see perfect circles or perfect ovals, perfect triangles, perfect squares, perfect rectangles. Those are what we call geometrical shapes. And geometrical shapes don't exist in nature. Only organic or natural shapes exist in nature. So we might see like the center of a flower and think it looks like a circle, but if we look at it real close, it's not exactly a perfect circle. Or we might see a spot on a butterfly wing and think it's a perfect circle or a perfect oval, but when we look at it real close, it really isn't. It may have a flat side or a lumpy side or a side that kind of pushes out. Just like when you did those pumpkins, we talked about there were no perfect circles. No pumpkins were perfect circles. No pumpkins were perfect ovals. They're not perfect. They have flat sides and they change, and they're not geometric. They're more natural shapes. And when we cut those pumpkins out, we tried really hard not to make perfect circles or perfect ovals. And we're going to do that today. When we do some cutting, we're going to try really, really hard not to be perfect. A lot of times you want to try to be perfect, but when you're making natural shapes, you're trying not to make perfect circles or perfect ovals or perfect squares. And I'll show you what I mean by that in a minute. Okay? So we're learning about overlapping, and we're learning about organic or natural shapes. So to do this project, you're going to need all those papers that I sent with you, all the different colors. You're going to need a glue stick and a black crayon. If you want a pencil, you might use a pencil, but I'm not sure that you would really need one. But if you feel comfortable doing some of this with a pencil first, you could do that. So the big blue paper is going to be our main paper. It's going to be the background for our collage. And if you remember, when an artist is making a collage, that just means they're making their artwork by cutting and gluing. In our case, we're cutting just paper, but sometimes collage artists will use a lot of different things. But this piece is going to be our background part. And we're going to actually use the paper turned this way, horizontally. This is called horizontally. We're not going to turn it up vertically like this. We're going to keep it turned horizontally. Now, remember, the first thing we're always going to do is write our name on the back of our paper. And I've talked to you before about never using a marker to write on the back of your artwork because eventually it'll come through to the front and it'll show on your drawing. So today, it's kind of hard to see your name with a pencil on this blue paper. So today, I'd like for you to use your black crayon to write your name. And remember, you want to write it as neatly and as carefully as you can. So it's on the back, nice letters, a good size so it's easy for me to see, very easy to read, and my paper is going horizontally, not up and down, vertically like this. Again, I want to remind you, you can stop and start the video, so if you get a little confused or you get behind on something that I'm doing, you can always stop and go back and rewatch, rewind, or rewatch. Okay? So I'm going to lay that piece aside, and I'm going to go to my long, skinny green piece. And I want to remind you, I think we've talked about this before, whenever you're going to glue two pieces of paper together, you want to put the glue on the back of the smallest piece. So if I look at this green paper and I look at my blue paper, which one is smaller? I'm going to look at them and I know this green one is smaller than the blue one. So when I go to glue these two pieces of paper together, I'm going to want to put the glue on the back of the green piece. And right now it really doesn't matter which side is the back. Whichever side you put the glue on will be the back. So I'm going to take my glue stick and I am going to cover the back of this with glue. I want to make sure I get enough glue that it's going to stay stuck down. So when you bring this back to school, it holds together. We don't want it to not be glued very well and come apart when you bring it back. I'm going to take this green piece of paper and I'm going to tilt this down for a minute so hopefully you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to line it up on the bottom edge of the blue paper. And if you want to have mom or dad or brother or sister, grandma or grandpa help you do this, this is fine. But I'm lining it up along the bottom edge and I lined it up on the sides and I'm going to press it down. And if you look, it's not hanging over on the blue, is it? I did it so that when it's down, I can look at the back. When I'm looking at the back of my paper, I don't see any green. There's no green hanging on the bottom. There's no green hanging on the side. I've matched up those edges as best I could. Okay. I has created a horizon line. Remember, you have learned that a horizon line is where it looks like the sky and the ground touch. We know that the sky and the ground really don't touch, but if I'm standing out in a big field and I look really far away, it looks like they touch. So on this paper now, the blue, everything above this line is going to be our sky. The green, everything below our horizon line, is going to be the ground. Now we did some trees last year. We're going to actually do these trees a little bit differently than the ones we did last year. You may remember last year we painted some with a Q-tip, but this is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to start with my brown paper. And I'm going to cut an organic shape out of this paper. And you guys may be thinking like, oh, wow, I don't know how to cut an organic shape. I've never done that before. Well, let me tell you a secret. There is no way to make a mistake when you are cutting an organic shape. Any shape you cut, if it's not a perfect circle, a perfect oval, a perfect rectangle, a perfect square, it's not an organic shape. It's going to be an organic shape. So you can't really make a mistake. Whatever you do is going to be good. So I'm going to take my brown paper and my scissors, and I'm just going to kind of start cutting, just however I want to cut. Doesn't really matter. I kind of want to make the shape as big as I can. Okay. And I'm just going to make some bends and some turns, and there you go. I've got an organic shape. It wasn't very hard, was it? However I cut, it was going to turn into an organic shape. You look, it's not a perfect square, it's not a circle, it's not a rectangle, it's not a triangle, it's not any of those geometric shapes. It's just kind of a squiggly shape, a natural shape with a lot of curved lines around it. I'm going to take my brown freeform shape that I made, and I'm going to take my crayon and make a line that goes from the top to the bottom. Okay. Do you see that line going from the top to the bottom? Then I'm going to take, and this line's going to have a buddy walking right beside him. Okay. So there it is, walking right beside him. I'm going to take my crayon and I'm going to color in between those two lines. I'm going to try to let my wrist and fingers do all the work. Okay, so I colored in between. Now, you remember last year in kindergarten and first grade, we made some trees, and we made a trunk, a tree trunk like this, and then we made some limbs. And limbs just come off the trunk of the tree. So this would be a limb. Okay? I'm going to make 3 or 4 of those on each side. Okay, so there are my limbs. And then we learned last year that off of those limbs there might be some branches. And branches can be all different ways. No two trees are exactly alike. They have a lot of natural organic shapes even in their branches. So here I put a trunk, I put some limbs, and I put some branches. Okay. After I've got those limbs and branches on there, I'm going to put some glue on the back of my organic shape. And the back is, of course, the side that doesn't have any drawing on it. And when I glue this down onto my collage, making sure I get enough glue so it doesn't fall apart when you bring it back to school, I'm going to glue this down kind of over to one side. And if you look, I made it so that was on the blue and the green, isn't it? It's on the blue and the green. I didn't put it all up on just the blue part or all down on the green part. I made it so it's touching part of the blue and part of the green. Okay, so that makes our horizon line way back in the back. The tree's up closer. The horizon line is way back in the back. Now I'm going to take my brown crayon and I'm going to lay it down so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to extend the trunk down a little bit. Okay. So now that tree has the rest of its trunk. Okay. So the leaves of the tree is that organic shape. All right? Now I'm going to do that again. I'm going to take my red paper and I'm going to cut another organic shape. No way to make a mistake when you're cutting an organic shape. You just got to curve and turn and just whatever you want to cut it, however you want to cut it. I'm just going to kind of go around here and looky there. I have got another organic shape. It is not an oval. It is not a circle. It's just kind of a squiggly, wiggly kind of shape that you would find in nature, an organic shape. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I did with my brown. I'm going to use my crayon and I'm going to draw up the middle. I'm going to make another line right beside it. I'm going to color that in. I'm going to add some branches. And I'm going to add some, oh, those were my limbs. I'm going to add some branches now. Okay. And then I'm going to glue this one on. I'm going to put the glue on the back. My red piece is definitely smaller than my collage, so I'm going to put the glue on the smaller piece. Okay. When I glue it down again, I'm going to turn mine upside down so you can see. When I glue it on again, I'm going to put it over here, kind of away from my brown one, partly on the blue, partly on the green, and I'm going to press it down. And I'm going to take my my black crayon, and I'm going to draw the bottom of the trunk and color it in. Okay. Now we're supposed to be learning about overlapping, but you guys already know about overlapping a little bit. So you know that that red tree and that brown tree are not overlapping. Doesn't necessarily look like one's in front and one is in back, does it? Well, we're going to make some that do overlap. So I'm going to go to my orange paper. Now the orange paper is a little bit smaller. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to cut me an organic shape. Just cut any old way. It doesn't matter. It's going to be not a perfect oval, not a perfect square. Look at there. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw a line up the middle. I'm going to color it in between those two lines. I'm going to make the limbs. I'm going to make the branches. Then I'm going to put some glue on the back. I'm going to kind of come down here again. Put the glue on the back. And I'm going to be ready to put this tree, this organic shape, onto my paper. Okay. So, here's my tree. I want some overlapping. So I'm going to make this one kind of cover up part of the red one and the brown one. It's overlapping it. When I've got it glued down, I'm going to draw the rest of the trunk and color it in. Okay? So now when you look, just like our pumpkin overlapped, these trees overlap, don't they? It looks like the orange one is in front of the red one and the brown one. Let's see if we can get some more overlapping. I'm going to take this yellow one and I'm going to cut it any old shape because it's going to be a natural organic shape. It's not going to be a circle or a square or a rectangle or any of those geometric shapes. Same thing, make the trunk. The limbs. And you can go a little slower than I'm going. I'm going kind of quick here on the video. You guys could slow down a little bit. You can start and stop this video so you can remember and see what to do. Okay? Trunk, limbs, and branches. I'm going to put the glue on the yellow piece because the yellow piece is definitely smaller. Make sure I get enough glue on there to hold together when I bring it back to school. And I'm going to make this one overlap somewhere. Maybe it's going to overlap just part of this brown tree. Okay. When I glued it down, I want to make sure that it doesn't hang over the edge. We don't want part of our tree shape hanging out here past the edge. We want to keep this nice and straight and flat. Okay. I need to go ahead and put the trunk on the bottom of it. And now it looks like the yellow tree is in front. But I'm going to add one more tree. I'm going to add this light green. I'm going to make my organic shape by just cutting however it wants to cut. And then I'm going to add the trunk and the limbs. And some branches. Okay, now there's lots of places I could pick to put this tree. If I put it over here, it would still be overlapping. I could put it here and it would be overlapping. But I'm going to try to make this green tree look like it's out in the very, very front. So I'm going to make it overlap right here. It's going to overlap a couple of trees. I'm going to glue it on here so that it overlaps part of my yellow, part of my orange, and part of my brown. It's going to overlap a lot. Okay. So look at there. I'm going to bring it down, do the base, the trunk, and now I've got 5 trees in my collage. This brown one is way back in the back. The red one's a little bit closer, the orange one's a little bit closer, the yellow one's a little bit closer, and the green one is in the very front. It is the closest to you. Now when you make your collage, you can arrange your trees differently. You don't have to arrange them exactly the way I did this one. But I want you to make sure that there's some overlapping and have fun cutting those organic shapes. No way to make a mistake when you're cutting an organic shape. Whatever shape you cut out, it's not going to be a perfect circle, perfect square, perfect oval. So that means it'll be an organic natural shape. You will have done a good job. Okay? But I have a lot of overlapping. Look, my horizon line almost got completely overlapped. I only see a little bit of my horizon line out here on the sides. You might find that the whole horizon line gets covered up by overlapping. Nothing hanging off the edge, is there? There's no tree shapes hanging out here. It's still a nice rectangle here. My paper's still a nice rectangle. Nothing's hanging off. All my organic shapes are inside that rectangle. Okay? Well, I hope you have fun with this project. I hope you learn about overlapping and making your paper look like it has space, your drawing look like it has some space between things. Please remember to put your name on your paper before you start. Use that black crayon to put your name on the back. And please remember to bring it back to school and give it to your teacher. Give it to Mrs. Wetzel, first grade. Second grade, give it to Mrs. Patterson, and they will make sure that I get them so I can give you a good grade on your report card for the second quarter. This is our first project of the second quarter. We're all finished with our first quarter. All right? Have fun, and hopefully I'll see you at school soon. But if not, I'll see you back here on YouTube next week. Bye, guys.